we have lost the ability to have our own independent thought. You can't even think a certain way or express a thought a certain way about a certain thing unless it's in alignment with a certain agenda and people are okay with it.
Yeah, it's compliance tests. Then you have the Ash experiment where you have people, there's lines written out in front of them, and the mass group of everybody, they all agree that, let's say, the middle line, the medium-sized line, is the shortest line. They're trying to gaslight the guy into saying,
Gotcha.
oh yeah, this is, and more often than not, that kind of group influence just takes away a person's independence.
Hello and welcome to the Vinny Brusco Show podcast, episode number 459. I'm joined by Frank Valbiro. Frank is the host of the Quite Frankly Show, which can be seen weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, Twitch, and quitefrankly.tv. On his show, Frank dives into the great unknown, the human condition, history, hidden history, current events, and much, much more. Frank and I dove into all those topics, plus God, what it's like being a father, being a husband, and the incorporation of paranoia and how it could benefit you. Hope you enjoy this episode. It was a great conversation. Frank and I always dive deep, so I hope you will join the journey with us. Episode number 459 with Frank Valbiro. Enjoy.
Hello, this is Frankie Val, and you are watching the Vinny Brusco Show.
And here we go.
I think that, you know, we talk about like being 30 or 38 or in your 30s. And I think it's something I commend you on a lot, is that you've always pursued what you're interested in. You've always stayed the track of what you want to be doing for yourself. Is that something that like you intrinsically felt, and you just kind of talking about that flow space? Like you and your brother, you've both always been on the path of what serves you most. And for people that didn't step onto that path for themselves or don't take part in things like cold showers or activities for themselves, they may feel like, oh yeah, I've seen people that I grew up with. I'm like, oh.
I know a lot of haggard 35-year-olds. I know a lot of haggard looking 35-year-olds, no doubt. And I think pursuing a passion is definitely part of it. It keeps your soul young. Imagination, that's the most, I think that's to keep it, especially as a father now. I know, you know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're surrounded by all the things that I love. There's so much nostalgia in here, and so much of that was born, especially Star Wars, born from imagination, and it's kept imagination alive for so many people into adulthood.
Right.
To think about place that keeps you mentally flexible. Some people will say that that's childish, but no, if that inner child dies, then you're in the old age home at 40, no
Right.
doubt. That's just up here. As far as everything else goes, with pursuits, there's physical pursuits. Everybody needs to be a little bit more. They have to work on their bodies. And I think that we also live in a time of just great environmental toxicity. So much. The things that we drink, that we eat, even if we're eating well, food is so less nutrient dense than it used to be, that just considering certain types of supplementation, knowing what things do, what running away from saturated fats instead of embracing them. There's so much going on right now that can make a very young person that should be in the prime of their lives feel decrepit. Like I said before, I got to open up my hips. I know the feeling. My hip flexors are like iron.
Do you have a Sorite?
No, I don't. No, but I've had so many people have told me get that damn thing.
So how many people? At least three?
At least three.
Okay, so now you need to get it. You need to get it.
Yeah.
It works. I don't know how to really utilize it to its utmost, you know. I've used it a couple times. It works, but supposedly when you really get in there, it really loosens things up for you. Pigeon pose also was a big one for me. You know, I would just kind of sit in that pigeon pose position from yoga, and it like alleviates so much back pain and shit. I was like, what the fuck? I went to a chiropractor and I was like, hey man, my back's killing me. He's like, dude, it's not your back. Your hips are extremely tight. you need to loosen these bad boys up.
That's what most people think. People think it's their back. And now I was like, damn, my lower back, right at the base of my back is killing me. And then I start realizing, I'm doing research, and I start realizing this is my hips and this is my ass. This is my more specifically, medius gluteus.
Yeah.
That like side strip of ass muscle.
Yep.
That is so usually under
limber.
Oh yeah, no, it's a lot of people just don't even know how to target it. So I started working on that. I felt a lot of relief there, but there needs, I'm sitting down all day when I'm writing, then I'm broadcasting. That's why I got to get up and work out, just be upright, because you're sitting in flexion now. My hip flexors are like a ball. You got to elongate them, and you got to
talking about this is making me like,
yeah. We are so frail. We're so the human body, as amazing as it is, it's so frail.
Yeah,
and so much can go wrong with it
so quickly. I want to ask you something. So you obviously on your show, you talk about a lot of touchy topics.
Yeah.
In this current climate of the world, right? And what's going on. I mean, you talk to amazing authors and writers and psychologists, and you really run the gamut of people and pick brains and go into places that are kind of taboo, if you will. Yeah. Going back to what you're saying earlier with the food that we eat and consume, do you think in all of the podcasts you've done, all the show that you've done, all the research that you've done, do you think that there's like a nefarious plan in place that's taking part? Like, I go down these rabbit holes and I'm like, is it really that evil? Like, is there really like a diabolical scheme in place that is trying to keep people sick and trying to keep people fat and trying to keep people, zombies? Or do you think it's just us kind of running away with our imaginations?
I think it's 70% malice, 70% nefarious, and 30% just bad business and stupid consumers. That's just it. I think it's bad. I think that when we go into a grocery store, we don't know what we're looking for the most part. We don't know about our bodies. We don't know how it reacts to certain things. We don't experiment enough, and we don't care. And we trust. We trust way too much. And I do believe, yes, the other side of that is that there is the higher up the chain you go, there are people that just hate humanity and would love to see it hindered in any way, shape, or form. They would love to see it racked with medical problems to keep you on endless regimens of drugs that they have had a lock on in the production and the approval of since the get-go. And they also want to see you hampered by anxiety. And that's just the physical end of things. I mean, forget about the emotional, what's going on in schools, what's going on to mold and destroy the ability for a young child to perceive what's going on around them, and how it translates into adulthood, how it translates into decision making in any way, shape, or form, especially at a voting booth. So did you see that movie just came out? BJ Novak wrote it, called Vengeance.
No,
you would love it. It's on Prime. You would love it because it gets right to that point. He asked the question, and it's a great question. How much is really a conspiracy, and how much is us just not wanting to face some cold truths about how things just happen in life sometimes? And whereas that's true, things do happen. You can't blame government meddling on everything that befalls you in your personal life. But we're as a planet, I mean, we're being destroyed. But
do you think as like as a sentient being, right? As someone, having the awareness and being, the thinking monkey that we could be, right? I would like to think and go down the rabbit hole of, there are probably there is some malice to some of this stuff. But I think it goes to your point right there, is that I think most people don't take radical responsibility for themselves. And I mean, like, obviously you have the David Goggins of the world who maybe are too extreme to some measure, right? Maybe that's not attainable for most people, but there is that happy balance and that happy medium. And then you also have the idea of just self-thought and like sitting like in silence and having that reflective and then interfacing with your thoughts in a way that you say, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for my life or responsibility for myself. It's easier to just go, it's the government. It's this. It's Pfizer, you know?
Yeah. It is easier. It doesn't mean that in many cases it isn't true, though. You know, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean that they're not after you. So so there's a little bit of that.
Truman Show shit.
Yeah, but you know, when you okay, so for example, were you watching any of the craziness that was going on at Davos?
No.
Okay, you should start listening to these people.
See, I can't listen. I can't. I know myself. And if I go, I'll start going down the rabbit hole.
And maybe you should.
No. I understand that, but listen. It's like when I first didn't want to go into the sensory deprivation tank. I was like, I'm afraid of what I'm going to think, which made me say, well, that's scarier than anything I'm going to think. I need to go in there. I need to interface with that. I fear, because this is where my brain goes. I fear that I would become immersed in it. Like I would get lost in the conspiracy. I would get lost in I would be a sucker for a cult. I would be like, oh, all right, this isn't so bad. That's why I don't do these things. That's why I kind of keep myself anchored to the shores.
I think that the biggest problem you have with that line of thought is that you wouldn't be primed for joining a cult. You would actually be removing yourself from one. That's what it is. And because
it's a good way to put it.
The individualism that you find, the sense of responsibility that you start doubling down on, that you have to yourself, to your family, to your neighbors, your community,
sure,
thinking and acting locally, that's the kind of responsibility that you start finding the more you dig down deeper into conspiracy.
Well, I will say, I've found those things with the men's group I facilitate and my own journey of life, right? I've found those things in my own roundabout way. So maybe not going through the conspiracy, but I've come to these eye-opening moments, whether it be conspiracy theories and going, I don't know if it goes that far, but I've found my own interpretation and I've taken the lessons from those things and applied them to my lives through other means.
Right. That's good. That's good. I mean, there's more than 1,000 ways to skin a cat,
right?
And it's great, and that's really even if all of our problems were really just domestic, if we're talking about issues that we have in the American Union over here, and more specifically in New York, or more specifically in Westchester,
right?
The smaller the package is inside of that Russian doll, that is where we need to be concentrating. I mean, nobody knows your life better than you. Nobody knows your community better than you. All your friends. That's what we should be doing. But when you start seeing centralization and centralizing and centralizing and centralizing, where you create this universal system for everybody, where one size fits all, as we know, never fits well, then you start wondering, okay, how do I break out of this? Do I have a choice? And when you realize that, oh, I never had a choice, then that's all these people who love the new gizmos and gadgets that they start talking about chips and passports and lockdowns and all this other stuff that we need to do for the common good. And everybody's on board with it. And then when you start realizing, okay, this is a bridge too far. I want out. Oh, I'm strapped in. I can't get out. You never had a choice. When you realize that you wanting something for a time was merely convenient because you never had a choice, then it starts becoming a little bit more claustrophobic, and you realize I'm not a free person here. Everything about my life and everything about our lives in public is controlled, and we need to figure out how to untangle this. And when you see someone like these $1 trillion crooks in Davos talking about how they want to get pretty much chat GPT in people's brains, so that every thought you have, you said, to be able to be in that sensory deprivation tank, and to be, I'm a little bit nervous of what I'm going to find when I'm alone with my thoughts. There is not going to be any alone with they don't want you to be alone with your thoughts anymore. Did you see up in places like Canada during the lockdown, aside from admitting that their intelligence services were running psyops to measure public compliance. They were also saying, we don't want people out, that it's not necessarily about once all of the waves of infection start dying down. They said they wanted to keep the lockdowns in place because the biggest variant that they wanted to control was disinformation, which means we don't want people going out and talking to each other in the coffee houses and delivering each other their gripes and their grievances over what they just don't feel right about. Thought and communication, they want to be that buffer. They want to have in your brain, every time you have a thought, they want to have that Wikipedia footnote popping up and telling you why you're thinking something wrong. They want to fact check you in real time. They're talking about it constantly. Transhumanism. They hate humanity, Vin. They hate humanity.
Why? What, like, what is it? What is it about humanity? Are they not humans? Are they reptiles? Are they aliens? What is it that they're so up against? Is it just their own profit margins? Like, what is it that it could be? Right, it has to be more than that.
It's so
right?
much more than money. It's, if I were to talk to
is the battleground our souls? Is this something that's happening? Right, let's go down the route. Is this something that's happening on a grander scheme? Like, is there something that's going on in, you want to call it the Matrix, you want to call it the quantum world, you want to talk about other sides of reality? Is there something that's transpiring on that side of reality that we can't even comprehend, being so tangent and so tangible in this space?
Yeah, I think so. I really do think so.
God damn.
Dude, I think we're talking Twin Peaks. I really do.
Alternate universes and
yeah,
and these people know about this stuff. They're aware of this stuff.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you to what degree they're trying to push this all. I don't know how much on a spiritual level they're activated, what they're trying to commune with. What, I don't know what they're trying to commune with, and what they're trying to achieve, what kind of godlike status they want to achieve. But as far as their intentions, it's been laid out constantly. I mean, the Georgia Guidestones that got blown up, they've been talking about things like population control for a long time. I mean, one of the things that Georgia Guidestones were prescribed was keeping a world population under 500 million people. They've talked about population. They're constantly talking about reducing the population of the world by 80%. We're talking about, and they have these very magic numbers, 2030 and then 2050. 2030, 2050. We're 7 years away from 2030. I don't know where the hell it all goes. But your bigger question, is this something that goes beyond our current living space? Yeah. Yeah. And there are far more educated people that'd be able to give you a little bit of an insight into that. I can link you up with a few of them.
That'd be interesting.
You should be talking to people like my buddy Jay Dyer and a few others who can talk about the game planning that's gone behind a lot of these far more esoteric movements. But you know, I often get lost in that. What do they want from all of this? Are they trying to create a big Ghostbuster trap to pull all of our souls into them? When they talk about uploading consciousness, I know it's not real. I know it's nonsense. I don't believe that AI is something that can actually be attained. I don't think that there's just so many traps. There's just so many traps in false advertising. I don't know where to start, Vin, sometimes.
And that's the hard part, right? Is even starting to think these things, right? And go down these rabbit holes for your own awareness or news or whatever you want to use as your filter to get into it. But what concerns me, I guess, more so is the lack of thought that people actually give it, even on just the most logical level. Right. And you could talk about trans and you could talk about all these different topics but it's all the same. Is like, we have lost the ability to have our own independent thought. And on top of that, have discretion, right? Like, you can't even think a certain way or express a thought a certain way about a certain thing unless it's in alignment with a certain agenda and people are okay with it. And that's where, when free speech and language starts to get interpreted and skewed, that's when things get really like hairy. And for most people, they're just blindly walking through life and just going, just gotta, gotta get to the end, right? And they're existing this way, where giving yourself that space to think on these topics and think in this level opens up a plethora of thought. But then it's also going back to the previous one. It's like, I don't want to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Compliance tests. You have two big psychological experiments that I always bring up on the show, or have been up, especially since 2020. This is the Milgram experiment, which I'm sure you know.
I don't.
And then there's the ASH compliance experiment as well.
Please.
So what you have with the Milgram experiment, you definitely know this. This was a experiment about perceived authority.
Is this like the Stanford thing?
Where they're delivering electric shocks.
Okay, yeah. So that one, and then there's also the prison experiment, similar, right? Where they had certain students be the guards and certain students be the prisoners, and the ones that were the guards like took it way too far and started like hitting them and beating the prisoners. Like, whoa, this is all just a study.
Yeah, and
they just took it to the utmost.
There's that. I mean, with Milgram in particular, you have somebody, as long as they have that Rockefeller, Rockefeller created white coat on, and they're saying, deliver the shock to somebody. As long as an authority figure is telling them to deliver the shock to somebody on the other side of the wall, they'll do it. Then they up the wattage, they up the amplitude, the amps and all that stuff. So it's getting more and more lethal, this shot. You hear the other person on the other side of the wall screaming. And still, even though they're becoming a little bit more hesitant, they still hit the button. Some people bow out, but it's not as much as you would hope. Then you have the ASH experiment, where you have people who have certain lines. There's lines written out in front of them, just lines, vertical lines at different lengths. And one person who does not know that everybody else in the experiment is colluding with each other, the mass group of everybody, they all agree that, let's say, the middle line, the medium-sized line, is the shortest line. Okay, they're trying to gaslight the guy into saying,
gotcha.
"Oh yeah, this is," and more often than not, that kind of group influence just takes away a person's independence. There's some people who stand up and say, "No, this is no." Yeah, but those are pretty much the mental alphas of the group, and nothing can be swayed. They don't care what kind of adversity they face. But I would say we're everything about us has been figured out a long time ago. And when you centralize our communications, our entertainment, infotainment media, when you centralize the way that we educate, when you centralize everything, there is no way, there's no hedge. There's no hedge against corruption. There's no hedge against malevolent intent. Even if it's not happening, you can't allow the tools to exist. You can't do it. And that's the big problem there.
Well, you see that on even regular TV shows. They'll do like a prank show, and they'll have someone just stand on a line to nowhere, to nothing, and people all of a sudden will start getting online and all of a sudden the line's around the block. And if you go to anybody in that line, like, "Oh, what are you waiting for?" They're like, "I have no idea." They don't even know what they're online for. They're just getting on the line because someone started a line somewhere. And you see that in like prank shows, but that's a real thing, like that groupthink mentality. And it's hard to kind of separate yourself from the pack, right? Because then you are a pariah and you're ostracized from the group, and that individual thought process and that individual, radical responsibility that you're taking to stand up and say, "No, that middle line's still shorter than all the rest," or whatever the case may be. It's isolating. And I think that's where the big part of what people fear is isolation. And I think a lot of people don't feel seen in their everyday life. So therefore, to kind of just go through life and conform to feel like you're part of something greater, whether that be a religion, a political affiliation, or whatever it is, you just fall in line with that mindset and that thinking. And it takes for me internal, discovery to kind of learn what I actually do think and what I actually do believe in.
And what do you believe in? What do you think it's where have you been led in the last couple of years?
Down a lot of rabbit holes. And if you're asking me like the ultimate question, it's funny because I was asking this my son this question I write to school test, like what's the meaning of life? And I was looking at him, just staring at him. He was like, I don't know. And then I was like, he asked me, and I was like, I'm looking at it. And he was like, and we just had like that moment where like time froze. It's as cheesy as it sounds. I think it's just love, man. I think it's just about, your own love for others, love for your community, love for your family, just love. And if that's something that's being attacked, on any level, you have to find it within yourself to bring it to the forefront of your life.
I one thing that's happened for me, and I'm gonna have to keep that in mind, because when I want to get back around to what you just said, is I have
Like more coffee.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic, by the way. I'm feeling like a real mensch right now.
Jet fuel.
Yes. Oh, hey.
Hey, cheers.
Cheers. Good to see you again.
Pleasure.
I have really started getting closer and closer to God. I was agnostic for a long, long time. I would say that I'm actually even starting to wonder if agnosticism is something that's even a thing. I don't know. I just don't know. I think it's just, it was laziness on my part. I believe that there's so much that's been destroyed, and the one thing that's been destroyed is childlike joy, and that childlike joy and love and the connection that is really to God is something that can't be untangled from each other. And I discovered, especially through my wonderful audience, where we were talking, I had a show a couple of months ago, and I asked the question about crisis of faith. Are we having a crisis of faith right now? Is there anybody in the audience that's having a crisis of faith? Because I came upon this one email of a person saying that, I pray every day, but I feel like it's useless. I don't hear anything back. I'm just going to keep doing it because I don't know anything else, and I do believe in God, but I don't know what I'm getting out of this anymore, but I'm going to keep doing it. And I thought that was a pretty human thing. So I brought it up to the audience, and I got a great number of responses back. One of them talked about Saint Teresa of Lisieux, and she created I think the little way of getting to heaven, or the little ways of getting to heaven. I forget the exact thing, but what it was all about is the childlike joy, effortless joy. I mean, the sound of children squealing with delight. Just for I have a 2-year-old girl that's back at home right now, who I tied a red ribbon around a little stuffed dog's neck for her to have a leash, and she's running back and forth right now with a dog that's just tumbling behind her.
Right.
It's just a stuffed animal.
Right.
But she's squealing. That kind of thing. How do you get yourself back down where they don't even know that joy, that love, that excitement that they feel, that is effortless, that has been completely unmolested by the world.
The world. Yep.
That is a direct link to God, that God is love, that there's a lot more that comes to it. But how do you stay in that zone? I think that what we were talking about before with keeping imagination alive, keeping the soul young, is a huge part of keeping that conduit to the divine open. And I think that's really it. When you say the meaning of life, I'm looking at it. It's more, you're more true than you know. Obviously, being a part of the life creation process is a miracle.
It's beyond
that.
It's beyond.
But to also see something dwell inside of them, that if you could bottle it up, you would not only be the richest person on earth, you'd be the most powerful person in the universe. It's God. What is inside of your children when they have when that bubbling well of joy is just like there, and you can see it, you can almost like touch it. If you can bottle that up, you're the most powerful person in the universe.
There's no question. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think one of the best experiences that you could have, and this is just my own personal thing, is having children. It's not so much being a parent, because being a parent is beyond hard, but having children is different than being a parent. And when you get to see the world through your child's eyes, it is a reintroduction to what life is. I remember, and I could go on a million different scenarios because my daughter's just turned 8, my son's 3, but I remember when she first discovered ants, and she looked at me like, what the fuck are these? Like, she looked at me. I still have the stick from the day in her room, because she looked at me like, what in the world are these things? And I remember it. I remember when, and I'm sure, when she was born, and even my son, but when she was born, because she was my first, it was such an out of body experience. It was like the Truman Show. Like, there might as well have been lights and cameras, and the doctor might as well have been an actor, because it was so out of this world. And when there's moments like that in life that stand out, I believe that they're going to play on your deathbed. Like, the highlight reel of your life is going to stand out, and there's going to be certain moments that you'll just remember forever.
Yeah.
And as we get older, and as we start to, I see it in my daughter more and more, her being influenced by school, or her being influenced by her teachers, or by her friends, or by life in general. And you see that transformation, that innocence being like, it's like a balloon was popped by a pin, and it's slowly going away. And you see it. I mean, in comparison to my son, who's just like, you know what I mean? And it's, and we project onto them our own existence and things that we've been through, and and it's finding that balance. But you're spot on when it comes to that reintroduction to life. And I think keeping your soul and leaning into expressions of your soul is probably one of, if not the best outlets to tap back into that source of life.
And going back into the whole idea of, well, what kind of nefarious plots are really at play here, when one topic or another. In this particular topic, when you have children that are sent to school, and you have these absolutely batshit crazy, I don't even know what the hell, mongrelized animals that are called teachers, with their purple hair and the bull ring through the nose, and they don't know what day it is, what gender they are, whatever. And they're sitting in front of 5-year-olds, and they're imparting all of their crazy adult psychological baggage onto 3, 4, 5-year-old children, where they're not teaching them anything useful. They're actually looking to children for validation. They're actually looking to children to validate their crazy existence. And we see this more and more, whether you have a mental patient as a teacher, or if you have someone a little bit more Machiavellian, a little bit more subtle, a little bit more silk glove over the iron fistish. If they're pushing the message of the day, all that does, we are seeing this, the scrambling of a child's mind to accept some kind of a victim, oppressor, fringe adult sexual culture mindset of the world, politics that is installed. They're trying to install this base programming so early on. And what does it do? It severs them from that joy and gives them instead this confusing, this confused outlook on things, where all of a sudden they're walking through a minefield. They don't know what to call somebody over here. They see a boy, but they're being told that it's not a boy. They see, they all of a sudden they're looking at everybody through the lens of race, where there was nothing there before. There was just friends. And that is the kind of thing that burns the humanity out of younger generations, and in another way, as I said before, severs them from what I believe to be God, a direct line to God. And that again is, who's pushing that, who created these ideas, where did all of these social formulas and blueprints, where were they created, and what's the reasoning, what's the end game? That is all very high up the chain. It has been delegated to an army of little helpers on the bottom end of the pyramid. And we have to just know about this. So we have to be able to identify this stuff to preserve. Everything is about preserving humanity. Everything at this point. It's the end game, I believe. We are fighting on every front, whether it be the food, the medical front, the water, the air that we breathe, how we are treating ourselves, how we're treating each other, preserving, having children. I mean, we're at a population collapse. They keep talking about how they got to decrease the population. The only people that are having kids are in Africa and the Middle East. I keep wondering, what the hell are they talking about? I mean, they convinced us to stop having children, and they told us that it was it was noble, that we were helping the environment, that we were defeating the patriarchy, that that whatever the hell. And suddenly, Vin, nothing makes sense, and that's when you have to start thinking, this does not happen naturally. This is not naturally what happens to us.
I think also it goes back to the point of living your own life, and not allowing, it's easy to dismiss people. It's easy to dismiss thoughts and mindsets and approaches to life. And I think that there is, especially now that I've kind of went back to school, I'm pursuing, becoming a mental health counselor and really learning more about human beings, right? And how we exist and how we think, and diving into that more. People ultimately, it goes to your earlier point, like people want to be seen, people want to be heard, people want to express themselves and their souls. And it's not to say that those may go unwavering, right? But when you have a culture that in one regard suppresses that, right? But then we're giving you these other avenues and these other opportunities to express that, right? And it may not be the right platform or the right location, right? If a person wants to, I don't care if you have purple hair and you want to identify as whatever you want to identify as, God bless you. Go ahead, do it. But does it need to be here? Does it need to be in this location? And if I'm not comfortable, it goes back to like the Colin Kaepernick thing, which I think was a line of demarcation in the culture. It was okay for Colin Kaepernick to take a knee, right? A lot of people supported him. Okay, fine. If he wanted to do that, cool. But you weren't allowed to not be okay with it. Like if you were not okay with that, you were the problem. But yet he was allowed to do it. And I think therein lies the problem. It's not so much that someone wants to walk around with pink hair and purple hair and be this or be that or identify as this. Cool. But I don't have to accept your narrative. And the problem is that people lean on this term, this is my truth. This is who I am. And it's hard to question that. It's like someone coming to you and saying, well, they're questioning you as a father. Like, well, are you a dad? It's like, yeah, but they're questioning it. It's a questioning a part of their own identity. And now we've given this, it's the horse is so far out of the fucking barn. Now do we sit and wait, or do we try to go and catch it? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I'll give you a term for it. And it's a KGB. It's a part of a KGB program that is run on any kind of target nation. Demoralization. It's not a term that describes the way that you go and you affect a person or a group's morale. It's how you are able to rip away a targeted group of people from a collective set of morals. When you look at the Grammys the other night, you can see that there's no moral fabric that we are all tethered to anymore. That this speak your truth, the whole idea that truth is relative and that we are in a place of pure subjectivity, that there is no objective truth, that is something that has been created in a literal think tank at the Frankfurt School in Germany back in the late 19th century, and proliferated around the world with the con of communism. It's a con. It's just a tool. And this is really part of it, man. When you say, is it all nefarious plots? It's very hard for me to find something that isn't connected. It's very hard. And it's not because I'm paranoid. I don't have the Charlie Day
Right. The chart with
the conspiracy line. I
right,
don't have, I'm not at home all strung out.
right.
This is how it can. It's just all there. When you look at the Colin Kaepernick thing and the inability to be on the other side of him without being some kind of an ableist or a racist or something like that, even though the guy was adopted by white parents and given the world, and he's more successful even in his quickly declining his quick decline in ability to play. He's more successful than most people ever played sports. But the inability to be on the other side of what he did is, once again, it's about tearing down traditional societal norms. Anything that was a foundation for a once successful society needs to be taken away, needs to be ground down under the wheels of so-called progress, of subjective truth. That if you're demoralized and you balkanize the fabric of a nation or a civilization, then all of a sudden you're in a place where there's nothing that you can do together. There's nothing you can do together. You create a kaleidoscopic cultural hell. And what's the future there? There's nothing there. You're managing people's grievances. Most of them have been assigned at that point. You're assigned a grievance. Oh, you have a family member that was a slave 500 years ago. Therefore, you're the king for a day, and you're the person who has to pay. We will be the arbiter of all this stuff, reparations, this and that. Sexual this and that. It's a nightmare. They're creating an absolute nightmare.
But here's my thing, right? So is it because the foundation of a lot of these institutions, right, whether you want to say religious or political, or the foundation, the essence of what they were, we're going to use the word pure for lack of a better term, right? Like if you like, I joke around, people say, I'll say, well, they even crucified Jesus, right? Even if you didn't believe that Jesus was the Son of God, right? If you follow a Jewish tradition, right? At the end of the day, he was just a good dude, right? Like we could all just say, like his name has transcended time, and at the end, whether you believe the Son of God, for the most part, he's a good dude, and they even crucified him, right? So the essence of what a religion is, the essence of what a government is, right? The essence, the pure essence of it is pure, for lack of a better term, right? And it's the corruption and the perversion of these different things that have allowed people to, whether it be for ego or finances or whatever it is, has allowed it to get completely out of control, right? We all kind of agree that, and that's where the dividing factor is. And it kind of goes back to your earlier point, is like, maybe it's a reconnection of God. It doesn't have to be God in the God sense, right? It doesn't have to be, you want to call it universe, you want to call it the force, whatever you want to call it, but it's a connection of the self that we are, and maybe it's an identity crisis that we're all going through as a world, right? But the people saying, well, this is my truth, they have a I don't want to say platform, but they have a leg to stand on in their truth. But it's the acceptance, right? The Colin Kaepernick thing. It's the having to accept it and not being able to speak out against it or just have your own opinion on it. Therein, I feel, therein lies the problem.
Colin Kaepernick's, that whole thing is a part of a religion, though. That's what I'm saying. When you talk about traditional,
because when you say traditional America, or like whatever it is, it's like the American dream that we're all sold, that we spoke about earlier. That is a farce.
I'm talking about the small churches of America. I'm talking about the nuclear family. I'm talking about localized governance. I'm talking about duty to not only your family, but to God. That right there is what has been supplanted for something that is an earthly religion. When you think about how untamable people are when they are working towards something that cannot be attained on earth, that their true loyalty is to something that is bigger than what we're doing here, that they are striving toward love and hard work and anything else that could be I would say categorized like that. That's why when you have these invading forces that come in, especially on this kind of tyrannical leftist side of things, the first thing they try to burn out of people is their family structure. They try to burn out of people this idea of God and of course the local cultures that used to make up America. And it's everywhere too. They want that gone because in its place comes a more secular God, and that is where we're at. Well, I mean, if you look at what is all around us right now, we're living under it's a very theocratic society. They have the Grammys, Super Bowl performances, the Oscars. That's their holiday season. They have created a parallel calendar, a parallel political calendar of every month there's a new acknowledgement, a new visibility day, a new grievance month, a new worship month. They've completely made parallels and negations to everything that used to be something that was good, that was rooted in especially traditions of peace and spiritual rejuvenation, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and instead we get these agitating, provocative displays that we see like on the other night, and it's all very satanic. Satanism is the gold standard for everything, and I'm not talking even people aren't out there worshiping the devil, but Satanism as giving them a humanist goal to do nothing but worship the human human experience, the flesh deep experience here, and having that be the be all end all. That's all there is. It's right now. If it feels good, do it. Follow your truth. All that is totally debasing. And you can tell nobody's on the same page of anything anymore. It's chaos. And
but aren't we still saying that in our own way? Like, isn't the expression of your own truth, like, kind of back to what we were saying earlier, of like the pursuit of your soul, the pursuit of who you are, the pursuit of what you feel, the pursuit of your dreams and your aspirations. Now it's rooted in love, right? We're saying it's rooted in a place and it's coming from a authentic place of love. But aren't we saying the same thing? Like, you pursuing what you want to be able to do for what is best serving of you. Isn't that the same thing as this other expression of it? But it's just maybe, you said earlier, like, there's no truth, but isn't there is no truth? Because, like, if you go back and you want to reverse, like, is any of this real? Like, you could reverse engineer to that point. Like, we might just be in a simulation, right? So where's the line? Because I think that's what's being further changed and further blurred, is the line of reality. Hello, friends. How are you? Hope you are doing well. Just wanted to take a quick, brief break from the podcast to talk about something I am super passionate about, and that is mental health. Why? I have no idea. I just feel compelled to be in this space. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm a certified life coach. Great. There's a million life coaches out there. What does that mean? I have no idea. I am not a fan of the term life coach. I prefer journeyman for hire. Why? Why do you like journeyman for hire? Because life is a journey. Life is about alchemizing who you are, going deep within yourself, interfacing with all the bullshit you tell yourself, and gaining insight and perspective to you and to life. And I've done that with myself. I've done it with some clients, and I love seeing and I love being on the other side of that, learning how to respond rather than react, learning how to interact and interface with my thoughts in a healthier way. So I've learned some tools. I want to share them with you. If you're someone who's looking to elevate your life, gain some insight and perspective, and keep some distance and not be a short-fused lunatic. That sounds good to me. Head on over to vinnybrusco.com, fill out the form. We'll set up a quick conversation. We'll see if we're a good fit. If we are, let's rock. If we're not, good luck. I don't know what to tell you. Head on over to vinnybrusco.com, sign up. Hope to see you there. Hope to talk to you. Hope you're doing well. And that's it. Back to the show.
What I'm saying is that there is an objective truth to things, but we have been so diluted to the fact that we actually think that there is an argument to be made, a conversation to be had about the fact that there is a man and there's a woman.
Right.
I mean, when you can't even agree on biological realities anymore, where that is where the untangling and the disassembling of a species has gotten to the point of, then I mean that's not nearly the same as me saying, you know what really speaks to me, a life in radio or spoken word, or I want to go into powerlifting, and I want to be a sports coach of some way, or I want to be a stockbroker. I love the financial markets. There's that right there is not a truth. Those you're following passions. It's a way of being gainfully employed, but as far as truth goes and ethics, where you're talking about competing ideas of what the good is, that's something totally different. And I'm totally fine with living in a world where some people believe, for example, I just saw this guy on Twitter the other day, some big Twitter guy. He asked the question, well, here's the premise. The premise was, he was talking about transgender people. He said transgender people have been acknowledged by cultures for thousands of years. Why do you think, and he's asking the question to everybody, why do you think that it is such a touchy topic now? And I was like, what kind of a stupid question is that? The issue right now is when you talk about someone like when you talk about a transgender person, when you can say that, well, white rhinoceros, that has been acknowledged by cultures all over the world for thousands of years. The rare white rhinoceros.
I saw white deer once.
Yeah, it's you know what?
The albino deer. It was amazing.
The albino buffalo. They're genetic realities. It happens. But when you talk about transgenderism, which is a psycho-emotional situation for a person to be in,
sure,
and that's two different things. You can't conflate the two. And then to also say, well, what's the big deal now? You're pushing it. I mean, there is a systemic push to introduce this and normalize it with children, when that is terribly, terribly destructive stuff right there. So when you talk about truth, you start seeing how people they become more and more willing to just lose the plot continually to do what? They're pushing this religion of acceptance is really going to hurt a lot more people than it helps. And it already has, because now we can't even come up with the vocabulary to discuss the problems that we're having as a society anymore. We can't even discuss the problems because we cannot agree on the terms to describe the problem. So how can we say that there isn't a massive degradation in the way that we function as a species?
Well, it's an argument of semantics, right? It's just taking words, manipulating them to a certain way, and having them fall in line with your narrative or what you are trying to push or your agenda. And it's a great point of the idea that, to take that as an individual and to say, I want to have purple hair and I identify as this and that's who I am. I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me. Like, go ahead and do your thing.
On that, because that's the point I was trying to make. when you say, well, I don't mind if there's people out there who believe one thing or another, and I'm fine with that too. Me too.
Right.
I don't care. My whole thing is that once we've been demoralized to the point that we have, where now we can't even legally, in some places, you have Supreme Court justices that want to degender our the law. Like you have college campuses that are looking to make sure that all of their campus rules and laws and all that stuff is gender neutral. That when I mean, you have these gigantic corporations that are making sure that every bathroom is a political some kind of a political virtue signal about, hey, look, we have a gender neutral bathroom for you. It's okay for people to go out there and think that up is down and left is right and whatever the hell else. But when there is nothing to tether us down to basic principles of what it is to be human, then
Well, isn't that just allowing the conspiracy theory just to let, I mean, you're letting it just go, right? Like it's there are people that believe the earth is flat still, right? Yeah, like there are still these potential mindsets that are apparent in society, and it's the questioning of it, which again, I think that it's really rooted in people wanting to be seen, and on a bigger level, people wanting to have a purpose, right? People need purpose. People need a reason to get up every morning. And when you are someone that wakes up and goes, okay, here we go again, and you don't have this soulful purpose that you've unraveled on your own, but you've been given it to, it's been diagnosed to you by a doctor or by a politician or by ever. You now have a purpose. You now can be, well, this is who I am, and look at me, I'm a hero. Rather than serving others and serving yourself and pouring from a full cup, you're pouring from a traumatized, empty cup.
Yeah.
And you're allowing it to just trickle out into other people's cups, and now they have to now drink what you're pouring into their cup, no matter what. Therein lies the problem. It's not so much that you have an empty cup or that you have trauma. It's just that you're not interfacing with, the realities of the world on the same level as everybody else. Like you said, male, female. We could all just, for the most part, most of us could just agree on that. And then after that, if you identify something else, God bless you. Like if my son puts on a dress, right? I'm totally cool with it. Like he plays with baby dolls. He puts on a dress with his sister. They're playing. I don't care. That's great. Have fun. I have no problem with that. Now, if he starts saying, I'm a girl, like, do I run him to a doctor or a psychiatrist and say, my son identifies as a girl? Well, like there's that imagination piece that we were talking about earlier that we need to allow, but we can't allow it to, again, let the horse out of the barn.
Well, I would say censorship is a big part of it. This is where you start seeing it. This is where you start seeing the bigger problem, and you start seeing the strings that are tied to something else. As you said before, yeah, people feel like they're without purpose. Well, there's a lot of reasons why people can feel listless without it being some kind of a world government conspiracy. But but there's other ways of making people feel completely listless in the environments of the confusing environments that you get. There is really nothing to, you feel discouraged to go into more traditional places because you feel like that is a bad thing. Anything right of Karl Marx is Nazism. So you have to keep going farther and farther left into totalitarian hellholes, and every term that's accepted today is an insult tomorrow. So you're always updating the vernacular. But the biggest thing is the censorship. If somebody is out there saying that, oh, I saw my son playing with a doll, and now I'm taking him to a pediatrician, and I'm going to have his nuts cut off, and everybody else in society who thinks that is an outrageous thing, and child abuse and mutilation, and it should be stopped, and the parent should be arrested. If they are now kept in some kind of a shadow banned hell, if somebody wants to debate any other a hot topic of the day, and we see this a lot, any other hot topic, climate change, vaccines, anything that has become prevalent in society that has been polarizing, there is such a level of compartmentalization and censorship that there is no real free place for these ideas to be debated and or to have some kind of a dialectic, because in many places, in many cases, so much of the things that we are riddled with today that it's completely taken over the culture would have been completely destroyed so long ago by simple debate. It is so outrageous, and the only way that we have gotten here is because the ability to debate and pick apart, even just through Socratic method of asking basic questions and seeing this nonsense about gender theory and everything else just flake apart under basic scrutiny. Basic scrutiny in many cases has been disallowed. The classrooms are not places for thought. It's a place to accept the worldview of the teacher in many ways. If you want to pass, you have to know what the teacher is looking for.
That's a great point.
And
that is a very valid point, because I will say, being in the master's program that I was in, it's since changed just based off of some New York State thing. But there is this overall feeling you have, whether it be real or not, and right, but there is a feeling you're like, am I off here? Like, like there was one class I was taking and I was like, something's not right here. Like I wasn't like, and I spoke to a couple of other people in class, like, oh no, I got the same exact feeling. And I was like, all right. So I wasn't wrong. Like my antenna was tuned in correctly. I internalized and thought, oh, maybe it's me, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But then I spoke to other people in the class, like, no, there's something amok here. And to your point, you almost placate to the class or to the professor or to the teacher or to the system that's in place in order to not ruffle feathers, or just in order to just stay in alignment and just keep on going through. So it's a great point in regards to the education system, where now if there's certain agendas being pushed or certain mindsets of a teacher being pushed, well, now you're teaching people that, listen, you want to pass my class, you got to speak the same language.
And that's just self-censorship in an educational sense. When you're sitting there in a classroom and all right, well, I'm paying money for this. I want the benefits of completing the coursework. I want the benefits of, what that's going to do for me professionally, all that. You have to be able to self-censor a little bit to get by. And that isn't and of course that speaks to a little bit more of what we do when we sit down in front of somebody and talk.
Of course.
And you look in their eyes and you talk about whatever. There's a responsibility to be a little bit more diplomatic with someone.
Sure.
When you go into the internet, when you go into any other public forums where you can express an idea or you can push back against an idea that is being promoted in one way or another, and you are across the board shadow banned, if you are taken off, if you are targeted by the FBI for showing up to a school board meeting to protest, gender neutral bathrooms and or pornographic materials that are being inserted into curriculum, and all of a sudden you are on a watch list, or you are categorized in large by a large swath of a press conference at the White House as being a domestic terrorist, or I heard that the FBI are now monitoring traditional Catholics who see pre-conciliar Catholicism as something that is a little bit more traditional, a little bit more in line with things like that. The MIAC security reports that were out, I think in 2000, forget what it was. That was just around 2007, 8, 9. Returning veterans from combat zones. Those were automatically on lists of potential radicalized people. Second Amendment groups, radicalized anybody who thinks of America as a place with any kind of traditional American outlooks, I should say, that becomes something that we have to be monitored on. The monitoring, the self-censorship, the pressure to not talk about anything is very, very real. And why do I bring it up again is because when you have free speech, when you have a complete open forum to be as outlandish and as obviously wrong as you'd like, or to have a really, really good point, it all bears out. In a free market, whether it be the free market of selling peaches or a free market of ideas, this is the big thing. As long as it is free, the good idea, the good product is going to win out. The bad idea is going to be exposed for the bullshit that it is, and everybody has to just lick their wounds. They have to have steel sharpen steel and moderate a little bit. And then from there, we are able to actually create new chapters of discussion and then get some new perspective. From generation to generation, it's going to be necessary because new people are coming up. They're going to think that old ideas that had been defeated in the past are something new. Every kid out there who thinks that this socialistic, communistic way of life is going to lead to a utopia need to be taught about the hundreds of millions of people who were murdered in the 20th century over it. That it doesn't work, that it can't be tried and successfully implemented. They need to know this stuff, but when they're told you can't talk about that, especially if it's their truth, free speech is why, as long as you have that, a society has a chance. Because if you can't push back against a bad idea, and if you can't have your idea defeated, then it's over. It's over. It's like when I went back to the beginning where I said that these monsters at Davos, they want to make sure that you have a fact-checking microchip in your head every time that you have a thought that could be way too radical, which usually means pro-human, way too radical. It needs to be checked. We wouldn't have this balkanization in the country, not near. I mean, there's never going to be a time where you say it's just peace and harmony and everybody's just doing well. There's no more serial killings. Everything is fine. The inner cities there's no more gun battles. In fact, they're just daffodils everywhere. I'm not saying that, but as far as to the level of discord we have right now, if we had free speech, it would not be this way. It just wouldn't. It wouldn't. The ideas that have mutated into these giant cancerous tumors would have been excised so long ago.
See, the problem is that the term free speech, right? Because now you're saying, well, what is free speech? And you're saying, well, you could have that thought and you could speak that thought, but now there goes back to the previous point of, well, I can't have a counter to that point. I'm not allowed to express my opinions of that thought.
Why not?
But right, you could have your thought, but I can't have my thought. And therein lies the problem within the idea of free speech, because it's only free in one direction. It's not a reciprocal freedom. It's a freedom that, I guess, to, again, nefarious malice points, is preaching a certain narrative or instilling a certain mindset amongst a culture that is now saying, you have free speech, but don't speak about this.
Yeah, because
why are people afraid to interface with this? Why are people afraid to even think, like example for me, where I go, oh God, I don't go down that rabbit hole. Like, let's just, you know what I mean? Like my own thoughts of that. What do you think what is the thought behind that? What is the hesitation?
The hesitation for just average people?
Yeah, just like someone's just,
most people don't want to rock the boat. Like I say, I only talk about this stuff because I believe that it's incumbent upon everybody to understand what it is. If you are, I still consider myself a musician. I love playing music. I also love talk radio. I don't do politics every night. I when I have to do the news, when something big happens, I'll do it, but it's not my favorite thing to do. I love talking about weird shit. I love getting human interest stories. I love learning about people, history, hidden history. I love, but at the same time, this involves everybody. So I do that. And the question, what was the specific question again?
Why are people afraid to interface with the reality that might be potentially there?
Right. So if we don't want to rock the boat, that's the problem. I would love all I care about, and the average person I think cares about, is to just be able to go out, have a steady employment, be okay with what you're doing. If you can't love it, to be okay with what you're doing, to be able to have a family, or to at least have a house of your own if a family is not in the cards for you, to have friends over, to enjoy the holidays, maybe to have a couple of well-placed summer barbecues. A couple of well-placed summer barbecues.
You think that that's the problem? We've gotten away from the well-placed summer barbecue as a culture.
We don't want a lot. Everybody says, oh, the problem with the world is greed. I don't care if there are multi-trillionaires out there.
Neither do I.
It has never affected what I wanted to do in life. It has never affected my decision making, just because that there are richer people out there than me. You know, most people don't want to be billionaires. Most people don't need it. So, and that's,
what's the number? I think it's like after $75,000 a year, all your basic needs are met and everything. If that, like, there's a happiness barometer.
Not in New York.
Well, not in New York. Definitely not in Westchester. But there's like a happiness barometer, and they've studied that after $75,000 a year, your happiness doesn't actually increase.
Yeah, it's not. I can imagine that. It's good to not have a care in the world, but as far as accumulation and having that be, here's people who are already multimillionaires, and they're like, oh, if you're sleeping, you're not working. I'm like, oh, God, Christ, can I just sleep a little,
have a cup of coffee?
Can I if you're playing video games still, you're not making money. I'm like, you know what, can I play 2 hours of video games a month just to be able to whatever? But get to your point, back around to the point, most people don't want to rock the boat. They really just want to be able to keep things simple, and to have to go on to what they perceive to be a dangerous place where you're now fighting. You're now out there representing a cause, and you've now put yourself on the map, and you might become I don't know, you might become targeted in some way. Just especially if it's local. To show up to a town hall and to speak your mind means that it might be a little bit uncomfortable for you the next time you're online at the A&P, buy some milk, and you see somebody from town that used to be your friend that disagrees with your take on one thing or another that they saw you on, Channel 13 the other night. It's hard for people sometimes to see something that is obviously unhealthy, but go out there and put a name and a face to it. It's hard because most people just want to get on with what they're doing. But obviously we can see, if we take our hands off the wheel for too long, then somebody else who doesn't care about the barbecues is going to come on in, and they're going to try to make a business out of your life and out of perpetuating their line of work by turning your children into mindless drones that only know how to complain and vote in a direction that continues to keep them employed. And I think that is across all political mainstream political parties. I think that we are hopelessly trapped in this dualistic scam, and I don't know how we get out of it. I actually think that I think that the bottom just has to come out of it all, to be honest.
That was going to be my question to you. How do you get out of it?
I don't know. That's why I say, people say, well, Frank, will you vote for Trump again or something like that? Yeah, perhaps. I'll vote for him a third time. Not because I think anything's going to happen with the federal government. Or the federal government's gone. It's a zombie body. It exists to only perpetuate its own existence. There's nothing there. It is a completely unconstitutional farce. There's no legal basis for 95% of the federal government even existing as it is right now. No legal basis whatsoever. That is not going to correct itself. It's a workforce of over 2 million people. And then, of course, it funds an auxiliary shadow government behind it that is just off the books, and it's a terrible farce. So why I keep thinking human. How do you reinvigorate the human aspect of everything? And that is always what we're doing now. I mean, I love the human interest
Sure.
side of things.
Same.
I love family and friends, and wherever you can get some good, pure enjoyment out of life, and wherever you have an opportunity to act locally, whether it could be to go and become to run for school board, run for city council, whatever you can, that is really where you can make your biggest impacts. And we're seeing that happening all over the place. For as black pilled as you can get about what's going on upper echelons of government, like the Fed and all that stuff, there are so many awesome white pills to be swallowed around the world, around the country, as far as what people are doing locally. Local governments and local school boards are being just packed full of people who are newly awakened to what's going on, and a lot of kids are foregoing college now. That's great. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Why do you think that's a wonderful thing?
College is, I mean, first of all, what do you unless you're going to you want to be a brain surgeon, what the hell are you doing? We've created this ridiculous, I don't know, it's almost like watching the power surge plugged into itself meme, where we're sending children, most of whom should have no business going to college, go over there racking up hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt for degrees that are not necessary, that you're not going to be putting to use anymore. Most of the jobs don't even fucking exist. And I don't know, $150,000 to study East Asian lesbian dance. Who I mean, it's just, it makes no sense to me. And the other great thing I see, especially since the whole the lockdowns, is that there are now about 5 million American children who are being homeschooled now. My daughter will be one of them, and I understand that is a tide that needs to slowly turn. That ties into other things that parents are just unable to grasp or make work for themselves with the way that everybody has to work now. But I think that those are the great things. How do we get out of it? It's just about tilling the earth and making it fertile again for new growth. Because what we have right now is it's just got to be ripped out.
Yeah, and I think that starts on the individual level.
Yeah.
It starts with moments like this, conversations like these. Again, going back to that earlier point of being seen and being heard, and whether it be sitting in silence or allowing yourself to have these thoughts and these thought-provoking questions, and really sitting with them, and not just shying away from them. And what do you believe in? What is your belief system? And being okay with that, but then also being okay with other people's belief systems, and not having that have to migrate into your belief system, and just staying true to who you are and what you are and your course of action, and not letting that waver with anything, right? And that's where, again, to the previous point, that's where the lines get blurred, because in one sense, we're saying that and we're agreeing to that, like it is about finding your own individual approach to life, and tilling the earth, and whether it be homeschooling. Some people can't homeschool, right? So what's your version of being able to teach your child the values that you want to instill in life through homeschooling, but still having them be part of the system? It's creating your own system within the system.
Thomas Jefferson said, in matters of style, flow with the current. In matters of principle, stand like a rock. If we just had, for example,
one more time, matters of style, flow like the current.
Yeah, flow with the current. There's your flexibility there. In matters of principle, stand like a rock. And if that is where that whole idea that you just said of people being able to peacefully coexist with those who are different is just, but the problem is, what's that rock that we all have, so that style can just be something else? What's that rock? Since we're speaking from an American standpoint, what was supposed to be that is our system of constitutional, Republican government.
Right.
And that is, again, the Russian doll approach of a completely almost neutered federal government, and then you have your state governments, your local, your municipalities, then your sheriffs. These hedges against bigger and bigger attempts to consolidate and take away responsibilities from people, to have us abdicate our responsibilities to ourselves, our families, and our communities. Because if we have those responsibilities, in there comes the boundaries of knowing where your life and your responsibility ends, and that becomes somebody else's life, somebody else's property, whatever. And then you are a nation unto yourself, where your neighbor is not only just, Joe, he's also a neighboring state, and you are going to be good friends. You're going to prioritize yourself first, but then everything afterwards, it's good neighborly, whatever. And that is the microcosm. How do we live as individuals to how nations interact with nations? And when you have those, I mean, libertarians, anarcho-capitalists, when they advocate for stateless society altogether, the basis for that outlook on life is something called non-aggression principle, where you are, yes, you're out there self-interested, but you also know there's certain lines in the sand, and you're not going to aggress on anyone else, and that person has the ability to defend themselves, and any kind of aggression against them. These are the little things where, without taking religion into it, without taking any other stylistic thing about your personal life that could apply, you start seeing that everybody can still get along. I have friends who are atheists that are as conservative as I am when it comes to the ability for government to interfere in the lives of people and recreate Earth and therefore the human race. It doesn't matter that they have no connection or no interest in seeking a God outside of our experience right here. We're still on the same page. That's our rock. That's our principle. As far as style, we're going to go in different places. We're going to do certain things with our free time that we probably wouldn't have any interest to do together. But that has all been flattened, and that is what they're continuing to try to flatten with this one-size-fits-all approach to everything. And that's where I think is it all becomes a great interest to you and everybody around you, despite what you do with your life. I think that is just really where we all have when I was younger, politics.
Well, that was gonna be my question, because as you get older and you start to, my dad would always joke around like, I'm not worried about, don't worry about me. I'm worried about your kids. You know what I mean? And that becomes the mindset. And as someone I've never been a very political guy, like I'm not political by any stretch of the imagination, but the essence of human existence is what I'm interested in, right? The microcosm of the macro, the small within the big. And to your point, if you're operating, to me, I'm just going to operate within my system, within the system, because maybe the system is just too far gone and you can't change, the whole entire thing. You can't turn around this oil rig. It's not possible. So you just operate within your own microcosm and hope that having children, if that's what you want to do, but hope that in the next version, right? Like, I think that's, part of the thing about having children is that you bring to them all of your lessons in life, hopefully good ones, and you instill that upon them, but allow them to have their own expression of that. And in hopes that that's what overall over time kills the earth, that the heads and the mindsets of the people that are living in the microcosm allow that to grow into the culture.
Yeah. Yes. And it'll also give you a good basis for survival when the whole thing collapses, because that's the other thing that we don't have time for that today. I loved that I was watching the episode of you and Anthony, and boy, that brought me back.
Yeah.
That brought me back. That was especially that first 45 minutes or so, you guys talking about the, our beginnings and all in broadcast, and it's just amazing. The trail, that we all walk, that we all sometimes, the beaten trail. It's just incredible to see where life takes you, and the stories that we collect along the way, because boy, it's not stopping. It's not stopping. It comes at you fast. I don't know, Vin. It's just so many years. There's just so many years.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, and I think about how long I've been doing this show, how long you've been doing it, how long, it's funny. And I think it goes back to our previous point of just the connective tissue that forms over time, and having the outside perspective and being able to look from the outside onto your life and be honest with it and reflect on it and see the blind spots and be open to seeing the blind spots and allowing those things to make their way. And me and P were talking a little bit earlier, and it was just about controlling what you can control and allowing life to flow, and allowing yourself to flow through life. And it brings you to weird places. And I'm glad that we were able to like reconnect and have this conversation, because I watch your show and I'm a fan of yours, obviously. And it's just cool to see your growth and your evolution through, I mean, how many years now,
Yeah. 10. Well,
we were trying to do that math earlier. We couldn't figure it out. But
quite frankly, that was around 2010. I think I did my first show solo around 2010 or 2011. And that was like, I think it was a half-hour spot on a Wednesday night. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to do a half hour on every Wednesday. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do a half hour Monday through Thursday. I want my Fridays off. I said, this is stupid. I got to do all 5 days. So, and then it went from a half hour to, okay, I'm going to do an hour a night, Monday through Friday. And then I did an hour Monday through Friday until about 2016 or 2017. And around that time is when start picking up a little bit more subscribers, a little bit more, and I was becoming more and more audience funded. And I said, all right, I think we're getting closer and closer to being able to get away from personal training and to just go all in on this. And I set a goal, a funding goal. I said, if we hit this, we're going to go to a 2-hour show. If we hit this, we'll go from 2-hour show and then a monthly Saturday night show. If we hit this, we're going to go through and then of course, if we hit this, then we're going to start developing the Quite Frankly network, almost like ZenLive.tv.
Sure.
But this would just be an extension of the show. Obviously, one day I would love to have other live shows on there. That would be great. The Vinny Brusco show. That'd be
reunited,
yeah.
And it feels so good.
Do you have internet in here?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean,
hardwired internet.
See, so I mean, one day I don't know what the hell the capabilities are, and I don't know how late you would want to.
I go to bed at 8:00.
Oh shit! Damn. So you're in bed by my intermission.
I'm tired. You're not tired?
I'm exhausted.
Are you? I'm fucking exhausted,
especially
dude.
If you get a workout in. If you get a workout in the earlier parts of the day, I mean, I remember I was telling Lauren the other night. I said she would always joke with me. She'd go to bed, she would make herself because she can go to bed at 7:30, no doubt. If she's left alone, she can go to bed at 7:30, 8:00 and be fine with it. But the baby goes to bed at 7, and then I get home. My show is from 7 to 9, and then she wants to see me a little bit when I get back. So she'll keep herself awake, and she'll go to bed around 10:30 every night. But she used to joke with me, especially before Aurora was born, and would say, "Oh yeah, that's Frank's second life after I go to bed," because it was like a second life. She would go to bed at 10:30. I would be up at least until 1:30, 2:00 in the morning. The first thing I would do is I would download my show from that evening. I'd encode it, I make it into an MP3, I'd upload it to all the podcast platforms. Then I would do other, archiving, because YouTube can take all my work away at any time. So I physically archive all my stuff on my own drives. After that is all done, I start purging my inboxes. I start taking interesting emails out from people, thoughts that are follow-ups to the show before. I'm going to put this in my notes. I'll talk about it tomorrow night. Oh, here's an interesting thing. I'll put this, maybe I'll do that on Wednesday night. I have nothing going on there. And I just start organizing my inbox. And then I would go and I go through all of, not the news. I don't want to look at the news at that time of night, but I'll go on 4chan, I'll go on GLP, and I'll see all the threads that these autists are putting on out there, that they're just taking apart these theories about what's going on in the world. So I want to see spooky shit at night, paranormal stuff, and I'm listening to talk radio, late night talk radio, where they are talking about space, and they're talking about parapsychology stuff and parapolitical things, and that'll get me till about, I don't know, 12 o'clock.
That's horrible.
And then at 12 o'clock, then at midnight, I would say, all right, it's time for a shower. Let's go into it. And then I would just, I put on my little, my USB dot in the shower, and then I would link it to my phone, and I play I'd pick through a podcast or an old Art Bell episode, and I would just listen to something weird there in the shower. And I spend an extra 10 minutes just standing in the shower. And then, eventually it'd be about 1:30 in the morning, and I said, all right, it's time to go to bed and wind down. And I get to bed and eventually fall asleep. That does not happen. I can't. Once I hit 12, if I get there.
I can't get to 12 o'clock. I was trying to watch Andor the other night, and I fell asleep on the couch, and my wife fell asleep, and she's like, it's over. I was like, all right, go to bed. It was like 10:30. Like, wow. 10:30, I was out.
Do you see the ball drop anymore on New Year's Eve?
You ready? This was our New Year's Eve. Ready? We put the kids to bed. We both fell asleep. Woke up at like 10:30. My wife was in Emma's room. I was in my son's room. It might have been even later than that. It might be like 11:30. I think it was 11:30, because then we went right to the couch. We're like, we might as well just stay up for the next half hour, and then went right to bed. That was the only way I was making it. I took like an hour and a half power nap.
And I'm not judging you at all. I know.
You could judge away.
I would love to. It sounds amazing.
It isn't.
But are you up at like 4 a.m?
I was
workout.
I was at one point. I was way more diligent than I am with it now. Now I'm just overall tired. I'm just tired. I looked at my wife yesterday. I was like, are you? She's like, I'm so tired. I was like, are other people tired?
How are you eating?
I eat well. Like carnivore based.
Okay. Do you like intermittent fast, or
I did. I've gotten away from it.
Okay.
There's a lot of things I need to circle back to that I know work in life.
I'm trying to get myself into a place where I'm consistent, and I'm trying to find optimal range, optimal windows for everything, because I do have that strain, man. I do. Last night I got home from the studio, and I just laid down on the couch, and I'm telling Lauren, my head is throbbing on my left side. I just felt like all the muscles around my skull. I'm like, I can't. I got to find a way to make this more fit. I had a real rough time writing the show yesterday. There's some days where writing the show is rough, where there's something I want. There's something missing. There's just something going on. And I remember taking a bathroom break, because the one thing I did do right yesterday, I didn't work out. I ate terribly, but I drank a lot. That was good. Because I'm pissing every 25 minutes. I went to a bathroom break, and I'm looking at the tiled wall in front of me, and I'm saying, I'm not set in my ways on this. I am open for any and all new efficient ways of writing the show. Just give me the inspiration. I am not being pigheaded about this. These fucking days have got to stop of hitting a wall. There's like, I know that tonight's show will be easy, but days like yesterday, I can't do it. That sucks, man. That sucks. I would much rather be breaking rocks in a quarry than have the mental exhaustion.
That's the key, man. The mental exhaustion
sucks.
is on another level of exhaustion. It's another level to it.
And there's nothing. If I go to bed with my body throbbing from physical exertion, that is a great day.
Yeah.
But if you go to bed and your body is just kind of like, no, I didn't. Well, physically, I was a slug today, but my mind feels like it's deflated. There is just nothing gratifying about it.
It is there. So there, like my days off, I joke around about, but you squeeze living into life, and the days off where I am just fucking dialed in. I go to jujitsu, I do a podcast, whatever it is. I mean, I check the boxes, time with the family, whatever it is.
You're Superman.
It's just fucking another level of existence. And I'm I'm a different human being that day. And even the following day, I'm like, holy shit. And then it's like, again, it goes back to that earlier point, that pinprick. And you see it, with a child, or you see it as an adult, and it just slowly steams out. And you're like, oh. And that's, I think, how most people exist. Monday through Friday. Can't wait till vacation. Can't wait till Friday. Can't wait to get to the end.
I know. It's a dastardly way of living. It is. It's bad. That when you get to that point, no, you something's got to change, and it's always good to have something to look forward to.
Always.
I mean, you have to put a little something. Hey, here's a weekend. We're going to go there. I'm going to take a Monday off over here. I'm going to take a Friday off over here. Hey, we're looking forward to a spring vacation. It'll be here before you know. Like, it's just always something good. It's almost like, when the a good way of fighting, or at least treating depression, is they say to go for a walk where visibility could be beyond like 3 or 4 miles. So if you are able to go to a boardwalk or something and just stare out and be able to see the Long Island Sound, like down at Playland or something, that has such big impacts to be able to just
have perspective,
that there's look at how far out this goes, that things, you aren't living in almost like a psychological cubicle. You're not stuck in the cubicle. Look, the walls just expanded. The scenery changed. There are just things that you can do. If you can't vacation, you could do stuff to change things over the course of a day. Like I said, I have to force myself just to go on the back porch from time to time. You're writing away. You're getting the marketing all done. I do all my old booking for the show. So I'm contacting people, and then I've got this beautiful little baby running around who wants me to take dance breaks with her. So I'm just like inside the house, and you got to do things to change things up. You do. And I think that goes a long way. But physical exertion, damn. Lauren was like, we were talking on the couch last night, and she can see it was a really rough night, just mentally. I was like, man, I hope I'm not getting sick, because I felt that run down. But she's, we're wrapping up our talk, and I said, you know what? I got to buy myself a punching bag. It's the first thing she said, okay. She said, okay, I don't know how that really pertains to what we were talking about here, but if you want to do that, I said, yeah, I need something else. I need to be able to just lay into something, do a little shadow boxing, throwing my kicks. Kung Fu has been a big part of my life for almost 10 years now. In 2014, it'll be 10 years. But I need some impact. I need to fucking hit something.
Yeah.
And so these are the kind of the random thoughts last night, to be talking with your wife about the daily stresses of the day and a plan for the next day, and then suddenly be like, I got to go on Amazon and buy myself a punching bag.
I got to hit something.
To pick up the phone, like to break off the conversation, I got to go on Amazon and just spend money.
Isn't it weird? Like, there we go. Like, perfect. The full circle. I love our conversation. Full circle. We're talking about how the expression, I gotta go on Amazon and buy something that's going to be delivered tomorrow because I need to express myself in this way. Full circle of life. Full circle.
This one comes with boxing gloves, honey.
Wrist wraps.
Jesus. I can't. I can't.
The
Oh.
wrist wraps. Gotta get the wrist wraps.
Oh. How's everybody else? So, like, you still talk to Steve and Carm and everybody?
Steve, I still talk to. Carmen here and there, not as much. Everybody, it's life. It's just it takes over, and everyone does their own thing, and you cross paths when you can and if you can, and it's all good.
You're right.
It's all good
You're
as
right.
long as you treat it all good and show up for yourself. I think that's the number one thing, is just showing up for yourself.
Did you get everything you wanted out of this talk? Like, is this what you wanted to talk about? I hope I didn't pull you into like quicksand.
No, I don't. I just wanted to talk to you.
Okay.
I didn't care what we talked about. I don't come prepared to these things.
Me too. See, that's what I wish I can do.
I have my notes for myself, which is basically just calm the fuck down and slow down.
It's great notes. I learned I learned a lot from watching other people do interviews of what to do, what not to do, who I think are the worst interviewers on the planet and who are some of the best. And what separates them is the ability to just slink back, let somebody talk, to I mean, this is actually just a way of being successful in life too. You're actually listening to somebody, you're internalizing what they're saying, and then the next step is, once they wind down, you formulate your thought and you ask a question based on what they just said, and you further the conversation. There's so many people out there that are constantly interrupting everybody. You can tell that they're just waiting for a chance to say what they have to say next, like waiting for their turn to say something instead of actually asking a question,
right,
and listening. I mean, that's beyond talk entertainment. That's just everything else. Like, you ever sit in a room full of friends or acquaintances or something, and everybody's having, and you just feel like, I might as well just be in a room by myself. There's nothing going on in here. It's either everybody's on their phones, or I'm having a conversation with somebody where I know the clock is ticking. I have about 25 seconds to get everything I need to say in, because they're going to steamroll me into whatever the hell they obviously already have prepared to say.
100%.
They're not listening to me.
My new thing is, I say this to, whether it be my children, my wife, or even coworkers, right? The sales guys, they'll start telling me, like, you don't have my full attention. You don't have my full attention. So whatever you have to say right now, you do not have my full attention. So either I could break what I'm doing so I can give you my full attention, or you could wait out the time. But you do not have my full attention right now. So
that's respectable.
It's the truth. It's the moment, because I could give you half-assed attention right now, or I could say, here it is. You don't have my full attention right now.
Right.
And I just point out the energy in the room. And I'll say to my kids, my daughter will be talking, like, you don't have my full attention right now.
That's very respectable stuff.
But I don't come to any of these prepared, for the most part. Sometimes I have like a couple things I want to talk about, but with you, I was just like, I just want to talk to Frank.
Well, if you came by the studio tomorrow night for a show, which of course you couldn't because you'd be sleeping by intermission. Now I realize this. How am I ever going to get you at the studio for a show? If we do a Saturday night special, and it's me and Anthony and Mike, and you come by. I mean, we start those at 9:30, 10 sometimes.
Way too late.
Holy shit! What are we going to do, man? I mean, I would love to come back here again on another Tuesday morning.
Let's do it.
I mean, this is a lot of fun.
This is great.
But especially when it's 98 degrees in here in August.
Well, it's freezing right now.
This is fine.
Are you good?
I think that the chill actually
keeps you awake.
Yeah, keeps you awake.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's like how they pump oxygen into a casino. You better stay awake, keep gambling. But
there's more light in here though than a casino.
Yeah, a little bit more, and there's less drinks. But how the hell am I going to get you on the show?
We'll figure it out.
You're going to have to take a nap. Take a nap at 5 o'clock and just get to the studio by 6:30. No, take a nap.
I can stay up past 9 o'clock. I'm capable of it. I just don't really like to.
Okay. Well, I mean, hey, it'll help your show. So I mean, you become an ambassador for your show. You go to mine, and hopefully, I'm
cross pollinate.
Yeah, I want to cross pollinate people to you. You have a lot of You've been doing this a long time. I know that.
I love it.
And I mean, being in here is a testament of passion. I love it. I love the environment in here. It's great. I mean, this is the kind of space that I would create for myself. I'm actively thinking about how to do that with the new little living configuration that me and Lauren are coming up with. And I'm going to have all the same temperature issues that you deal with. I'm trying to think, how do I figure that out too? But yeah, no, this place is no doubt a product of pure passion, and hell yeah, I know you're a lifer.
Yeah, there's nowhere. This is people. I've gotten compliments on this space, and I always say this is what it's like being inside my brain. This is being inside my brain. So thank you for the compliment. I appreciate the kind words. It means a lot to me. And thanks for coming on. It's always good to find like-minded individuals, and then more importantly, people who are on a similar path and a similar journey. And we've been on that same path for a long time, and we connected and reconnected, and it ebbs and flows as most things do in life. But I'm so glad you were to be able to come here and do this with me. And it was just like that synergy that we can have is real. So I appreciate you coming on, and you're the best, dude. I love it.
No doubt. I'm happy, especially since it took us so many years.
Many years.
Because it's not like we haven't been texting and DMing on Instagram.
Yeah.
Just like, so when are we getting together, bro? I don't know. And then it's just months,
years. Try to squeeze living into life.
I know. But
this is living.
Yes.
This is living.
I like it. This is living. It's not just breathing.
Frank, where can people get your show? Where can people connect with you and get all of your wonderful perspectives and insights?
Quite frankly, .tv is the easiest way for keeping up with the with everything that goes on. All of your ability to watch the show live, it's all there. You can watch right on quite frankly.tv, or there is links to the YouTube and the Rumble and the D Live and the Twitch. There's Theta, there's Rockfin. I'm adding more live platforms as soon as I figure out how I can split up the bandwidth and not have it all start buffering on me. But Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time until 9. And obviously you can listen on demand. All that is available in podcast form and video on demand form. And so it's all on quite frankly.tv. And that'll be I can't wait until I see quite frankly title featuring Vinny Brusco. So you got to come on, and you just got to stay awake one night, and we'll do it.
I'll have to stay up past 9 o'clock.
Yeah. I mean, we'll be walking out of the studio by 9:15.
Okay.
It's not like we're going to be like burning the midnight oil.
Well, that's where the best stuff happens. So maybe we'll I'll take an early nap.
Listen, you have the right idea by going to bed early. I mean, there's a little bit more symbolism in the whole Cinderella idea of the pumpkin, the carriage turning back into a pumpkin at midnight. It's I don't know, it's like diminishing returns after midnight, no doubt.
That's you know, the old grandma quote, right?
Yeah,
nothing good happens after midnight. So nothing.
Frank,
you're the best.
Thank you, Vin.
Appreciate you coming on, buddy.